When I got home that evening, the first thing I noticed was the smell of burnt toast. Not just the faint scent, but the kind of acrid stench that sticks to your throat. It was strange because Lisa never cooked when I worked late. She hated eating alone. My keys jingled in my hand as I stepped into the kitchen, expecting her to be there, maybe with a half-hearted apology about forgetting something in the toaster. But she wasn't there. Instead, there was a note stuck to the fridge with a magnet, her handwriting sharp and rushed. Gone to clear my head. Don't wait up. Lisa. It wasn't like her. Lisa had a flair for drama. Sure, but she never just disappeared without 100 text messages to guilt me into chasing after her. And why would she need to clear her head? We hadn't argued in weeks, which was rare for us. The house felt wrong, too still, too empty. I crumpled the note in my fist and tossed it on the counter. Annoyed, my gaze landed on the burnt toast sitting on the counter. 2 pieces, both untouched, one with a single bite taken out of it. The edge of the bread was smeared with something red, jam, probably. Or so I thought. I rubbed it between my fingers absent-mindedly, but when I went to rinse it off in the sink, the water didn't wash it away easily. That wasn't jam. I swallowed hard, trying to push away the unease creeping up my spine. Grabbing a beer from the fridge, I sank into the couch and tried to shake off the weird vibe in the house. The TV droned in the background, but my focus was gone. My thoughts kept circling back to Lisa's note. Why would she leave without calling? Why would she bother making toast if she wasn't going to eat it? And why the hell was there blood on the counter? The doorbell jolted me from my thoughts. It was almost 9 p.m. Who the hell rings someone's doorbell that late? I opened the door to find a delivery guy holding a massive bouquet of red roses. David Lawson? The guy asked, his bored expression barely masking his irritation. Yeah, that's me. Sign here. I scribbled my name, confused as hell. I wasn't the type to buy flowers unless it was Lisa's birthday, and even then, she had to remind me. The delivery slip didn't help much. No sender's name, just a note tucked inside. You don't deserve her, but thanks for keeping her entertained. Eugie. My hand clenched around the note as my brain scrambled to process what I just read. Who the hell was Jay? And what kind of psycho sends flowers to rub it in? I marched inside, adrenaline pumping now. Lisa's car wasn't in the driveway, her phone wasn't on the counter, and my calls went straight to voicemail. The stillness of the house didn't feel wrong anymore. It felt like it was mocking me. That's when I noticed the second note, barely peeking out from under the stack of unopened mail on the dining table. The handwriting wasn't Lisa's. It was too neat, too precise. She won't tell you the truth, but I will. The air in the room felt charged, my pulse hammering in my ears. I grabbed the note, searching for more clues, but there was nothing else. Just that one cryptic message. I didn't know what I was about to uncover, but I knew one thing for certain. Tonight, everything was going to change. I sat at the table, the cryptic note clutched in my hand, staring at it like it might burst into flames and take my sanity with it. The weight of its meaning was undeniable. Someone else knew something I didn't, and they wanted me to find out. My stomach churned. Calm down, David. I muttered to myself, but it was no use. The stillness of the house, the smell of burnt toast, the missing car. It all piled up into one screaming alarm in my head. I grabbed my phone and dialed Lisa's number again. Straight to voicemail. I left a message, trying to sound calm. Lisa, call me. Where are you? We need to talk. As I ended the call, my eyes flicked back to the table. I sifted through the stack of mail under which the note had been hiding, hoping for some kind of clue. That's when I found the envelope. It wasn't addressed to either of us, just a blank, white envelope with nothing but a lipstick smudge sealing it shut. I tore it open and pulled out a single photograph. It was Lisa, sitting in a dimly lit restaurant I didn't recognize. Her head tilted in that familiar way she used when she was pretending to be interested in someone. Across from her was a man I didn't know, his hand resting lightly over hers on the table. The date and time were printed in the bottom corner. Last Thursday, 8:43 p.m. That was the night she told me she was going out with her friend Claire. My chest tightened as I stared at the picture, my mind replaying every little inconsistency from that night. How she'd come home late, smelling like wine, with a vague story about Claire's guy troubles. How she'd rushed into the shower before I could even hug her. I felt sick. My first instinct was to grab my keys and drive to Claire's place, but something stopped me. Claire was Lisa's best friend. She'd cover for her no matter what. Confronting her would be a waste of time. No, I needed to know the truth before I did anything. I looked at the note again. She won't tell you the truth, but I will. The delivery slip for the roses. Of course. I grabbed it and squinted at the barely legible scrawl of the delivery address. There it was, an apartment complex across town. I didn't think twice. Grabbing my keys, I headed out the door, my thoughts racing as fast as my heart. The drive felt like a blur, my mind running through every scenario. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe the note and the photo were some cruel joke. But deep down, I already knew. The way Lisa had been pulling away, the late nights, the sudden bursts of defensiveness over her phone. It all made sense now. When I arrived at the apartment complex, I sat in the car for a moment, staring at the dimly lit entrance. I had no plan, no idea what I was about to walk into, but I couldn't go back home without answers. I found the apartment listed on the delivery slip, #3C. My knuckles hovered over the door, hesitant, before I finally knocked. The door creaked open, and a man stood there, mid-30s, fit, the kind of cocky smirk that screamed trouble. "Can I help you?" he asked, leaning casually against the doorframe. I didn't have to ask. I knew instantly who he was. "Jason?" I asked, my voice cold. His smirk widened. "Ah, you must be David. I've heard so much about you." I clenched my fists, my jaw tightening. "Where is she?" Jason raised an eyebrow, clearly amused by my anger. "Lisa? Oh, she's not here right now. But don't worry. I'm sure she'll call you, eventually." The smugness in his tone sent my blood boiling. I stepped closer, barely restraining myself. "You think this is funny?" Jason shrugged, his smirk never faltering. "Not funny, no. But it's definitely not my fault you couldn't keep her attention." That was it. My restraint snapped. I grabbed him by the shirt and shoved him back into the apartment, slamming the door shut behind me. "You think you can just—" I started, but he cut me off, laughing. "Relax, man. You should be thanking me. Do you even know what she's been up to?" His words hung in the air, chilling me to the bone. I let him go, stepping back, my fists still clenched. "Talk," I demanded. Jason straightened his shirt, clearly enjoying my anger. "Oh, I'll talk, but you're not gonna like it." Jason crossed his arms, leaning against the back of his couch like he had all the time in the world. His smirk was gone now, replaced by something darker, like he'd been waiting for this moment. "Sit down," he said, motioning to the chair in the corner. "I'm not sitting anywhere," I snapped. "Say what you need to say, or I'm walking out of here and straight to the cops." His laugh was sharp, like the scrape of a blade against stone. "The cops? For what? Having a few dinners with your wife? Grow up, man." I took a step toward him, and he raised his hands in mock surrender. Okay, relax. You want the truth? Fine. I'll give you the truth." Jason pulled his phone from his pocket, swiping through his messages. When he turned the screen toward me, I froze. There she was, Lisa. Her face was unmistakable in the stream of selfies they'd exchanged. Some were innocent enough, her sipping wine, smiling in the sunlight. Others, not so much. "You're full of it," I growled, though my voice wavered. Jason shook his head. "Keep telling yourself that. But Lisa and I have been seeing each other for months. David." She came to me, not the other way around. I stared at the screen, unable to look away. There were messages, too. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. "I can't stand him sometimes. He doesn't get me like you do. You're the only one who makes me feel alive." "She's lying," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "She'd never say that." Jason scoffed. "You think I'd fake all this? For what? Look, man, I'm not trying to ruin your life. She was miserable and I was convenient. But don't kid yourself. This wasn't some accident. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to scream. But all I could do was stand there, staring at those messages, her smiling face mocking me from the screen. "Why are you telling me this?" I finally asked, my throat tight. Jason shrugged. "Because she's not worth it. She's playing both of us. She comes to me, tells me how terrible you are, but then she goes back to you like nothing happened. It's pathetic. I'm done being her dirty little secret. His words stung, but I forced myself to focus. If you're so done, why send me the roses? Why the note? You could have just walked away. Jason smirked again, though it didn't reach his eyes. Maybe I wanted you to see her for what she really is. Or maybe I just wanted to watch the fireworks. Either way, you're here now. I turned away, trying to process everything. My world felt like it was crumbling around me. Each word Jason spoke hammering another nail into the coffin of my marriage. She'll deny it, I muttered, more to myself than to him. Jason laughed again, a bitter sound. Of course she will. But deep down, you already know the truth, don't you? Why else would you be here? I didn't answer. Couldn't. The tension in the room was suffocating. Jason stepped closer, his voice lowering. One last thing. Check the hotel receipts. She's got a thing for the Marriott downtown. Room 403. I turned to face him, my heart pounding. How do you? She doesn't delete her emails, he interrupted, his grin returning. Guess she thinks she's too smart for that. I didn't bother responding. I stormed out of the apartment, slamming the door behind me. My mind was racing as I got back into my car, Jason's words echoing in my head. The Marriott, room 403. If he was lying, I'd know soon enough. But if he wasn't, I started the engine, gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The drive to the Marriott felt like it took a lifetime. My grip on the steering wheel was ironclad, and my thoughts were a mess of anger, disbelief, and betrayal. Jason's smug grin kept flashing in my mind, feeding my rage. His confidence wasn't the kind you faked. He knew something. The rain had started, the kind of downpour that made the streets shine under the streetlights. It matched the storm brewing inside me. By the time I pulled into the hotel parking lot, I was soaking in cold determination. I stepped into the lobby, scanning the room. It was quiet, except for a receptionist typing lazily at her desk. My shoes squeaked on the marble floor as I approached. Good evening, she said, smiling warmly. How can I help you? I leaned on the counter, trying to keep my voice steady. Hi, I'm supposed to meet someone in room 403, but I, forgot the room key. Can you help me out? Her polite smile faltered. I'm sorry, sir. For security reasons, I can't. It's my wife, I said, cutting her off. Lisa Lawson. Look, I just need to know if she's checked in. Please. Her expression softened, but she still hesitated. I can't give out guest information, but if you'd like to leave a message. I slammed my hand on the counter, my frustration boiling over. This is important. Just tell me if she's here. The woman recoiled slightly, her professionalism slipping. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to calm down or... It's fine, Dana. A voice interrupted. I turned to see a security guard walking toward us, his arms crossed. He looked me up and down, clearly sizing me up. Can I help you? He asked. I swallowed hard, trying to rein in my anger. My wife is cheating on me, and I think she's in room 403. I'm not here to cause trouble. I just need to know the truth. The guard raised an eyebrow, glancing at the receptionist, who seemed unsure of what to do. After a tense moment, he sighed. Let me take a look. He walked behind the counter and tapped on the computer. I held my breath, every second feeling like an eternity. Finally, he looked up at me. Someone checked into 403 earlier today under the name Lisa Moore. Moore, her maiden name. My stomach dropped. Is she still here? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The guard hesitated, then nodded. Looks like it. But if you're planning to go up there, you need to keep it civil or we'll call the cops. I didn't respond. I was already heading for the elevator. The ride up to the 4th floor was agonizingly slow. My heart pounded harder with every floor I passed. By the time the doors opened, my pulse was a drumbeat in my ears. Room 403 was at the end of the hall. I approached it, every step feeling heavier than the last. The air was thick, suffocating. My hand hovered over the door, shaking. I wanted to burst in, demand answers, but something stopped me. What if I was wrong? What if this was just a horrible misunderstanding? I pressed my ear to the door, straining to hear anything. At first, there was only silence. Then, faintly, I heard voices. Lisa's voice. And a man's. Every doubt, every hope I'd clung to shattered in that moment. I knocked. Hard. The voices stopped. "Lisa!" I shouted, my voice trembling with rage. "Open the door." For a moment, there was only silence. Then, I heard hurried footsteps and hushed whispers. The door creaked open slightly, and there she was, Lisa, her hair messy, her face flushed, wearing nothing but a hotel robe. Her eyes widened when she saw me, panic flashing across her face. "David, what are you doing here?" I shoved the door open, stepping inside. The room reeked of perfume and cheap cologne. The bed was unmade, the sheets a tangled mess. And standing by the window, looking as smug as ever, was Jason. "Well, this is awkward," he said, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. Lisa stepped in front of me, her hands raised defensively. "David, I can explain." "Explain?" I cut her off, my voice shaking with fury. "Explain what? That you've been lying to me for months? That you're screwing him behind my back?" "It's not what it looks like," she said quickly, her words tumbling over each other. He's just a friend. A friend." I laughed bitterly, the sound harsh and hollow. "You expect me to believe that? After everything?" Jason, clearly enjoying the chaos, leaned against the wall, watching us like we were his personal entertainment. "Lisa," I said, my voice low and cold, "you betrayed me, shattered my trust. So, just sign the papers and let me walk away." Her eyes widened, and for a moment, she looked genuinely afraid. But then, like flipping a switch, her expression hardened. "Papers?" she spat. "You think you're just going to walk away and leave me with nothing? After everything I've put up with from you?" I stared at her, stunned by the sheer audacity. "Everything you've put up with?" I repeated. "You're the one cheating, Lisa. You're the one who—" She laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. "Oh, spare me the righteous act, David. Maybe if you'd paid more attention to me, I wouldn't have had to find someone else." Her words hit me like a slap to the face. My hands trembled at my sides, every fiber of my being screaming at me to get out of there before I did something I'd regret. Without another word, I turned and walked out the door, her voice still echoing behind me. "Don't think this is over, David," she shouted. The elevator ride down was suffocating. My reflection in the mirrored walls stared back at me, eyes hollow, jaw clenched. The anger, the humiliation, the crushing betrayal, they churned inside me, a hurricane I couldn't contain. Lisa's words played on a loop in my head. "Maybe if you'd paid more attention to me." I gritted my teeth, fists balling up so tight my knuckles turned white. How dare she twist this? How dare she make her infidelity my fault? The elevator dinged, and I stepped into the lobby, the cool air a slap against my burning face. I didn't go to my car. Not yet. I needed to clear my head, and sitting alone in the driver's seat felt unbearable. Instead, I walked out into the rain, letting it soak through my clothes as if it could wash away the mess my life had become. As I paced the sidewalk outside the Marriott, a thought began to form. Sharp, cold, and inevitable. Lisa wasn't just lying. She was deflecting, manipulating, setting up her narrative to make herself the victim. If I didn't act fast, she'd twist everything before I even had a chance to breathe. I pulled out my phone, opened the messaging app, and started typing furiously. "Claire, we need to talk. Now, don't cover for Lisa. I already know everything." I hit send and immediately dialed her number. It went to voicemail. Figures. Claire was probably already prepped with whatever excuse Lisa had cooked up. I turned to my next move, evidence. Jason's smug face flashed in my mind, and I realized he might still have the receipts. Literally. As much as I hated him, he'd said one thing that rang true. She's not worth it. I wasn't just walking away. I was burning it all down. I dialed Jason's number. Thankfully, it was on the delivery slip from the roses. The phone rang twice before he picked up. "Well, this is a surprise," he said, his tone dripping with amusement. "Miss me already? Cut the crap, Jason," I snapped. "You said you were done with her. Prove it." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and when he spoke again, his voice was more serious. "What do you want?" Everything. Every message, every photo, every receipt you've got. If she's been staying at hotels, I need proof. If she's been saying anything about me, anything, I need that too. Jason laughed, though it was colder this time. Why should I help you? Because you said it yourself. She's not worth it. And if she's screwing me over, you know damn well she's screwing you over too. Do you really want to be her backup plan when this all blows up? There was a long silence, broken only by the sound of rain pattering on my hood. Fine, he said at last. But this stays between us. I don't need her coming after me when she finds out. Deal, I said quickly. Meet me tomorrow, he added. Coffee shop on 5th, 10 a.m. I agreed and hung up, my heart pounding. Jason's cooperation was a long shot, but I needed every edge I could get. Lisa wouldn't go down without a fight, and I wasn't about to let her walk all over me. The rain began to let up as I got into my car, the wipers squealing against the glass. My phone buzzed, and I glanced at the screen. It was Claire. Claire, what's going on? I don't know what you're talking about. I clenched my jaw, typing back. Me don't play dumb. Where's Lisa been spending her nights? The typing bubble appeared, then disappeared, then reappeared. Claire, I think you should talk to her. Coward. I threw my phone onto the passenger seat, fury bubbling up again. Claire's loyalty to Lisa was unshakable, and I was wasting my time trying to break through it. I needed hard evidence, something no one could argue with. As I pulled into my driveway, the house looked darker than usual, almost menacing in the dim light. I walked inside, still dripping from the rain. The note Lisa had left earlier was still crumpled on the counter, mocking me. I grabbed it, smoothed it out, and stared at the rushed handwriting. It wasn't just the words that struck me, it was the carelessness. The way she'd left it there, assuming I wouldn't question her, assuming I'd always trust her. That was the moment I made my decision. If Lisa wanted to play dirty, I'd play dirtier. No more hesitating, no more second-guessing. It was time to take back control of my life. The next morning, I arrived at the coffee shop on 5th a few minutes early. The place was quiet, the kind of spot where no one paid attention to anyone else's business. I ordered a black coffee, sat at a corner table and waited. Jason showed up exactly on time, wearing a leather jacket and that same infuriating smirk. He slid into the chair across from me, dropping a manila envelope onto the table. Morning, he said casually, as if we were old friends meeting for brunch. Let's skip the small talk, I said, pushing my coffee aside. What's in there? Jason leaned back, folding his arms. Proof. Texts, photos, even a copy of the hotel receipts. Everything you asked for. But before I hand it over, I need something from you. I narrowed my eyes. This isn't a negotiation. Oh, it is, Jason said, his smirk widening. See, Lisa's not just messing with your life. She's been screwing with mine too. She told me you were some boring husband who didn't care about her, and I bought it. Turns out, she's a manipulative little. Get to the point, I interrupted, my patience wearing thin. He chuckled. Fine. The point is, I don't want her coming back to me when this all falls apart. I want her out of both our lives for good. I nodded slowly. Agreed. Now, give me the envelope. Jason slid it across the table, and I opened it with shaky hands. The contents spilled out. Screenshots of text messages, some of them sickeningly flirty, others downright explicit. There were photos of Lisa and Jason together, at the Marriott, at bars, even one of them kissing in a parking lot. The receipts were the final nail in the coffin. Several bookings at the same Marriott, all under Lisa's maiden name. The dates matched the nights she'd claimed to be out with Claire or working late. It was worse than I'd imagined. Jason watched me closely as I sifted through the evidence, his smirk fading. It stings, doesn't it? He said, his tone almost sympathetic. Finding out the person you trusted most is the one stabbing you in the back. I didn't respond. My hands trembled as I shoved the evidence back into the envelope. I'm going to destroy her, I said quietly, the weight of my words sinking in as I spoke them. Jason raised an eyebrow. Good luck. She's not the type to go down without a fight. But hey, if you need backup. I won't, I snapped, standing abruptly. Jason shrugged, standing as well. Suit yourself. Just make sure you hit her where it hurts. And for what it's worth, David, she's not worth your time. I left without another word, the envelope clutched tightly in my hand. When I got home, I spread the evidence out on the dining table, organizing it like a case file. The texts, the photos, the receipts, they painted a clear, damning picture. There was no way Lisa could weasel her way out of this. But as I stared at the pile, another thought crept into my mind. This wasn't just about proving she cheated. This was about protecting myself. Lisa wasn't just unfaithful. She was manipulative, cunning, and spiteful. If I didn't handle this carefully, she'd find a way to twist the narrative, to make herself the victim. I grabbed my laptop and started typing out a detailed timeline of events, cross-referencing the evidence with my memories. I wasn't leaving anything to chance. Later that evening, Lisa finally came home. She waltzed into the house like nothing had happened, her hair freshly done, her smile bright and fake. "Hey," she said casually, setting her purse down on the counter. "You're home early." I didn't respond. I just stood there, arms crossed, watching her. She frowned, glancing at me. "What's with the face? Did something happen?" "Yeah," I said, my voice cold. "Something happened." Her eyes darted to the table, where I'd deliberately left the envelope sitting in plain sight. Her smile faltered. "What's that?" she asked, her tone cautious. I took a step closer, my gaze never leaving hers. "That's everything you've been hiding from me. Every lie, every betrayal, every disgusting little secret." Lisa's face went pale, and for a moment, she looked genuinely scared. But then, just as quickly, she recovered, her expression hardening. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice defiant. I snatched the envelope off the table and pulled out one of the photos, shoving it in her face. "Really? You don't know what this is?" Her eyes widened, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. "David, save it," I snapped, my voice rising. "I know about Jason. I know about the Marriott. I know about everything, Lisa. So don't you dare stand there and lie to my face." She hesitated, her eyes darting around the room like she was searching for an escape. Then, to my shock, she started laughing. "You really went through all this trouble?" she said, shaking her head. "God, you're pathetic." "Excuse me," I said, my voice dangerously low. Lisa crossed her arms, her defiance growing. "You heard me. You're pathetic, David. You think this is going to make me feel bad? Newsflash. I don't. Maybe if you weren't so boring, so predictable, this wouldn't have happened." Her words cut deeper than any of the evidence ever could. "You're unbelievable," I said, shaking my head. "You betrayed me, shattered my trust, and now you're standing here acting like it's my fault?" "Maybe it is," she said with a shrug. "Maybe you should have tried harder to keep me happy." I stared at her, my anger reaching a boiling point. "You know what? I'm done. You want to blame me for your mistakes? Fine. But I'm not going to stick around and play your punching bag." I grabbed the divorce papers I'd prepared earlier that day and slammed them onto the counter in front of her. "Sign them," I said coldly, "and get out of my life." Lisa stared at the papers, her confidence faltering for the first time. "You're serious?" "Dead serious," I said. For a moment, she looked like she might argue. But then she smirked, picking up the pen. "Fine. Have it your way, David. But don't think for a second that you're the victim here." She signed the papers with a flourish, tossed the pen onto the counter, and grabbed her purse. "This house is depressing anyway," she said over her shoulder as she walked out the door. As the sound of her heels clicking against the pavement faded away, I let out a long breath. It was over. The house was eerily silent after Lisa left, the echo of the door slamming shut still vibrating in the air. I stood there, staring at the divorce papers on the counter, her scrawled signature glaring up at me like a final insult. It was done. I should have felt relief, or closure, or even satisfaction, but all I felt was a heavy emptiness, the kind that pulls at your chest and makes breathing feel like a chore. My marriage was over, torn apart by lies and betrayal, and though I'd won this battle, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd lost something far more important. Dragging myself to the couch, I sat down and stared blankly at the wall. My mind raced with 1,000 thoughts, none of them clear. I tried to tell myself it was for the best, that Lisa had shown her true colors and I was better off without her. But even the truth felt hollow. Then, as if on cue, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Claire. Claire. David, can we talk? I had no idea what was really going on. Please don't shut me out. I snorted bitterly. The irony of her sudden concern wasn't lost on me. For months, Claire had been Lisa's partner in crime, covering for her lies and feeding me just enough excuses to keep me off the scent. But now that the truth was out, she wanted to play innocent. I typed back quickly, my anger spilling into the words, "Me too little, too late. You were her accomplice. Stay out of it." Her reply came almost immediately. "Claire. No, I swear, I didn't know how bad it was. Lisa told me it was harmless flirting, nothing more. I didn't realize she was actually..." "Me, stop. I don't care. We're done." I silenced my phone, tossing it onto the coffee table. Claire's words didn't matter anymore. Nothing Lisa or her circle of enablers had to say would change what had happened. But as I sat there, something started to shift inside me. A realization cold and sharp. Lisa hadn't just betrayed me. She'd humiliated me, dragged my name through the mud, and then had the audacity to act like she was the victim. No, she didn't get to walk away from this without consequences. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in months. The evidence Jason had given me was still sitting on the dining table, neatly organized. I flipped through it again, my mind whirring with possibilities. Lisa had built her life on lies, and I wasn't going to let her rebuild it on my ruins. First, I called my lawyer. "I've got the signed divorce papers," I said, my voice steady. "But I need to make sure this goes as smoothly as possible. No loopholes, no delays." "Understood," she replied. "I'll handle it. Do you want to pursue any claims for infidelity?" I hesitated for a moment before answering. "No, I just want it over with. But make sure she doesn't get a cent more than she deserves." Next, I turned my attention to Lisa's social media. She lived for appearances, curating every post to show off her perfect life. I drafted a post of my own, attaching one of the photos Jason had given me. Not the most explicit one, but damning enough. David Lawson. To those of you who've supported Lisa and me over the years, I wanted to share some news. Our marriage is over. Unfortunately, it ended due to infidelity, as you can see. I'm moving forward, and I hope Lisa finds whatever she's looking for. I hit post and watched the reactions pour in. Comments, messages, texts, they flooded my phone almost instantly. Friends, family, even acquaintances I hadn't spoken to in years reached out with shock, sympathy, and, in some cases, outright disgust for Lisa's behavior. It wasn't petty. It was justice. By midday, Lisa called. Her name flashed on my screen, and for a moment, I debated ignoring it. But curiosity won out, and I answered. "What do you want?" I asked coldly. "What the hell is wrong with you?" She snapped, her voice shrill. "You posted that photo? Are you insane?" "I just told the truth," I said. "Isn't that what you always wanted? Honesty." "You're ruining my life," she screamed. I laughed bitterly. "Oh, now you care about your life? What about mine, Lisa? What about the life you ruined when you decided to sleep with Jason? Did you think I'd just roll over and take it?" Her tone shifted, desperate now. "David, please, take it down. My parents have seen it, my coworkers. It's everywhere. I'll do whatever you want. Just delete it." I leaned back in my chair, savoring the moment. "Too late, Lisa. You made your bed. Now lie in it." She started to say something else, but I hung up. By the end of the day, the fallout was complete. Jason texted me a screenshot of his own messages with Lisa, where she'd begged him to talk to me on her behalf. Jason told her to kick rocks. "She's all yours now, buddy." I deleted the message without responding. Jason was part of this mess, but he was her problem now. As I stood in the kitchen that evening, looking out the window at the setting sun, I felt something I hadn't expected. Peace. The storm was over, and though I was bruised and battered, I was still standing. Lisa had tried to break me, but in the end, all she'd done was set me free. The days that followed were surreal. The chaos Lisa had brought into my life began to fade, leaving behind an uneasy calm. I started piecing things back together. Clearing out the house, focusing on work, and leaning on friends who'd come out of the woodwork to support me after my post. But then, just when I thought I was done with surprises, my phone buzzed with an email that froze me in my tracks. Subject: urgent, you need to see this. It was from a name I didn't recognize. Emily Carter. Curious but wary, I opened it. Hi, David. You don't know me, but I know Lisa. I was hesitant to reach out, but after seeing your post, I thought you deserved to know the full story. Lisa didn't just betray you with Jason. He wasn't the only one. She's been lying to more people than you realize. Attached are screenshots from my own experience with her. I hope this helps you find some closure. Best of luck. Emily. My heart pounded as I clicked the attachment. The file opened, and I was greeted with a series of texts between Lisa and someone named Emily. It started innocently enough. Flirty exchanges, compliments. But as I scrolled, the messages grew more intimate. Lisa wasn't just unfaithful with Jason. She had been seeing Emily too, under the guise of exploring her boundaries. One message from Lisa stood out like a neon sign. David doesn't understand me. He never has. But you make me feel alive. The words echoed in my mind, familiar and sickening. They were almost identical to what she'd said to Jason. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, staring at the screen. The anger I thought had burned out reignited, hotter than ever. This wasn't just betrayal anymore, it was a pattern. Lisa wasn't some victim of circumstance. She was a calculating liar, someone who thrived on deception. I forwarded the email to my lawyer without hesitation, adding a note. Use this. I want it all documented. Then I sat back, trying to process what this meant. Lisa hadn't just shattered my trust. She'd obliterated the entire foundation of our life together. The woman I thought I knew was a stranger, someone who wore masks to manipulate the people around her. That evening, Claire called. I debated letting it go to voicemail, but something told me to pick up. What? I said, my tone sharp. I saw the post, she said quietly. And I saw the comments. David, you need to hear this. Hear what? I snapped. Another excuse? Another story about how Lisa didn't mean it. No, Claire said, her voice trembling. I'm done covering for her. I know you hate me right now, and you have every right to. But you need to know something. There was a pause, and I could hear her take a shaky breath. She's been lying to me too. For years. She made me believe you were controlling, that you didn't care about her. That's why I covered for her. I thought I was helping her escape a bad situation. But it was all a lie. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I wanted to hate Claire, to scream at her for enabling Lisa's behavior. But there was something raw and genuine in her voice. She's not who we thought she was, Claire continued. And you're not the only one she's hurt. What are you saying? I asked, my voice low. I'm saying Lisa's been playing everyone. Me, you, Jason, probably more people than we even know. I found messages on her iPad. David. She's been juggling this whole web of lies, and now that it's unraveling, she's losing control. The revelation left me shaken. Lisa wasn't just unfaithful. She was a manipulator on a scale I hadn't fully grasped. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't just about ending our marriage. It was about protecting myself from whatever fallout she might cause. That night, I drafted another email to my lawyer, outlining everything Claire had told me. Then, for good measure, I forwarded the screenshots from Emily too. Lisa had always prided herself on being in control, but now the tables had turned. She had spent years building her web of lies. But now, it was my turn to watch it all burn. Lisa's web of lies was unraveling faster than I could keep up. After Claire's call, the full scope of her deception started to come into focus. This wasn't just a betrayal of our marriage. It was a scorched earth campaign that left no one untouched. The next morning, my lawyer called. David, she began, her tone measured. I've gone through everything you sent me. Jason's evidence, Emily's email, the messages. We're looking at a pattern of behavior that could support claims of emotional abuse and marital fraud. Marital fraud. The term felt heavy, final, but it made sense. Lisa hadn't just been unfaithful. She'd built our life on manipulation, using me as a convenient backdrop for her double life. What are our options? I asked, gripping the phone. We can move forward with the divorce proceedings as planned, she said. But given the new evidence, We could pursue a settlement that protects your assets and limits her ability to make claims against you. Do it, I said without hesitation. Make sure she gets exactly what she deserves. Nothing. By midday, the storm hit. Lisa called me again, her voice frantic. David, we need to talk, she said. The confidence she'd wielded just days ago now replaced with desperation. There's nothing to talk about, I replied coldly. Please, she pleaded. You're ruining my life. People are turning on me. I can't even go to work without someone giving me that look. I laughed bitterly. You mean the look you deserve? Welcome to the consequences of your actions, Lisa. She fell silent for a moment, then shifted tactics. You don't have to do this, she said, her voice softer now. We can fix this, David. We can work it out. Her words made me pause, but only for a moment. Fix it, I repeated, incredulous. You spent years lying to me, cheating on me, and humiliating me. What exactly is there to fix? Lisa? You? Us? No, we're done. David, you betrayed me, shattered my trust. I cut her off, my voice firm. So, just sign the papers and let me walk away. Her tone shifted again, venom creeping in. You're going to regret this, she hissed. Maybe, I said, my voice calm, but not as much as you'll regret everything you've done. I ended the call, my heart pounding. That evening, I got another unexpected message. This time from Emily. Emily, hey, I don't know if you've seen this yet, but Lisa's been posting things about you. I felt my stomach drop as I opened the screenshots Emily sent. Lisa had taken to social media, spinning her own narrative. I'm going through a difficult time right now. Some people are intent on tearing me down, but I won't let them. It's sad when bitterness consumes someone to the point where they attack the person they once loved. Hashtag stay strong, hashtag truth will out. The comments were a mixed bag. Some of her friends offered sympathy, but others weren't buying it. This doesn't add up, Lisa. What's really going on? Didn't David post proof? Looks like he's telling the truth. I forwarded the screenshots to my lawyer. The next morning, Claire called again, this time with a shaky urgency. You need to know something, she said. Lisa's spiraling. She's reaching out to everyone, trying to spin this her way. She even tried to tell me you were abusive. I clenched my jaw. And what did you say? I told her I wasn't playing along anymore, Claire said, her voice resolute. But David, she's desperate. She's not going to stop unless someone stops her. The moment of reckoning came that afternoon when Lisa showed up at the house unannounced. I heard her car pull into the driveway and felt a jolt of anger. She had no right to be here. When I opened the door, she was standing there, rain-soaked and wild-eyed, clutching a folder. David, she started, her voice trembling. Please, just let me explain. There's nothing to explain, I said, my tone ice-cold. She stepped forward, holding the folder out to me. You don't understand. This wasn't just about us. I was lost, okay? I made mistakes, but I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't take the folder. Instead, I crossed my arms and stared at her. Lost? Mistakes? You didn't just hurt me, Lisa. You destroyed everything we had, and now you want sympathy. Tears welled up in her eyes, but they felt like another performance. I don't know what else to say, she whispered. Then don't say anything, I replied. Sign the papers, leave, and don't come back. She looked at me for a long moment, then dropped the folder at my feet and walked back to her car. As I watched her drive away, I picked up the folder and opened it. Inside were more messages, photos, and emails, evidence of just how far her lies had gone. It wasn't an apology. It was a plea for pity. But I didn't feel pity. I felt free. The rain picked up as Lisa's car disappeared down the street, her desperate visit leaving nothing but tension in its wake. I closed the door and stared at the folder she had dropped at my feet, its contents still spilling out. Part of me wanted to shove it straight into the shredder, but curiosity, or maybe masochism, won out. I spread the papers across the dining table. It was a mess of emails, screenshots, and handwritten notes. Some of it was redundant, old lies I'd already uncovered. But there were new revelations too, each one like another crack in the foundation of the life I thought I knew. One email stood out, sent from Lisa to her friend Amber just weeks before the blow-up. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. David's been so suspicious lately, and Jason is getting impatient. I feel like everything is closing in on me. But if I can keep them both in line a little longer, maybe I'll figure something out. Keep them both in line. The words burned into my brain. This wasn't just infidelity. It was manipulation on a level I couldn't have imagined. She wasn't lost, confused, or acting out of desperation. Lisa had been juggling lies like a career con artist, using people until they became inconvenient. And I had been her most convenient tool of all. I packed the folder back up and added it to the growing pile of evidence I'd already compiled for my lawyer. Lisa might have been trying to elicit sympathy with this stunt, but all she'd done was hand me another weapon. As I finished tidying up, my phone buzzed. Another message from Emily. Emily, just heard Lisa's latest. She's telling people you cheated on her. Thought you should know. My hands tightened around the phone. The audacity was unreal. Lisa's new strategy wasn't just damage control. It was full-blown character assassination. Me thanks. I'll handle it. But handling it meant taking the gloves off. The next day, I sent everything to my lawyer. I want this filed today, I told her over the phone. And make sure she knows we're including every single piece of evidence in the proceedings. I'm done playing nice. You've got a strong case, David, she replied. With what you've provided, she'll have no leg to stand on. But be prepared. She might lash out even harder. I'm ready, I said. And for the first time, I meant it. That evening, the fallout from Lisa's smear campaign hit its peak. Mutual friends started reaching out, asking what was going on. I kept my responses brief and factual, letting the evidence speak for itself. But one call stood out: Lisa's mother. David, she said, her voice quiet and strained. I need to know the truth. Lisa's been saying some disturbing things about you. I took a deep breath. Lisa's parents had always been a wild card, doting on her one moment, calling her out the next. But they deserved to know the truth. She's lying, I said, my voice steady. I'm not perfect, but I never cheated, and I never mistreated her. She's the one who broke our marriage, not me. There was a long silence on the other end. Finally, her mother sighed. I had a feeling. Lisa's always been difficult, but this is too far. She's going to try and turn everyone against me, I said. But I'm not going to let her rewrite the story. Her mother hesitated before replying. Do what you need to do, David. I won't stand in your way. The next day, I got a call from my lawyer. Lisa's signed the final agreement, she said. It's over. The relief was immediate, like a weight had been lifted off my chest. Lisa had caved, probably realizing she couldn't win. She tried to save face, but in the end, her lies had boxed her in. It's about time, I said. Now comes the hard part, my lawyer added. Moving on. She wasn't wrong. That evening, I sat alone in the house, surrounded by the remnants of a life I no longer wanted. The quiet wasn't oppressive anymore. It was peaceful. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Lisa had taken so much from me, but she hadn't broken me. She'd forced me to see the truth, even when it hurt. And now I could finally start putting the pieces back together. As I poured myself a drink, I raised the glass to the empty room. To the truth, I said quietly. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. The silence of the house felt different now, less like an accusation and more like a blank slate. I spent the days after Lisa's departure dismantling everything she'd left behind. Her clothes, her trinkets, even her favorite mug that used to sit in the cabinet mocking me. I packed it all into boxes and left them by the curb. Each item felt like a weight lifted, like I was clearing out not just the clutter but the grip her lies had held over my life. But even as I moved forward, the aftermath of Lisa's destruction followed me like a shadow. Friends drifted in and out, some too wary to pick sides, others firmly in my corner. And then there were the messages, the apologies from people who had believed Lisa's lies, the accusations from those who still did, and the quiet sympathy of those who didn't know what to say. It was exhausting. One night, I found myself staring at the evidence I had gathered. The screenshots, the emails, the texts, it was all still there, neatly organized in folders my lawyer had returned to me after the divorce was finalized. I thought about burning it, letting it all go up in flames. erasing the painful reminder of what I'd endured. But as I reached for the lighter, I hesitated. This wasn't just a reminder of pain. It was a reminder of survival. I had faced the worst of Lisa's deceit and come out the other side. If I destroyed the evidence, it wouldn't erase what happened. It would erase proof of how far I'd come. So instead of burning it, I packed it all into a box and shoved it in the attic, where it could gather dust and fade into the background of my life. A week later, I got a call from an unexpected person. "Emily, I hope I'm not overstepping," she said cautiously. "I just wanted to check in, see how you're doing." Her voice was warm, genuine, and it caught me off guard. I wasn't used to kindness in the wake of Lisa's destruction. "I'm fine," I replied, though the words felt hollow. She hesitated, then said, "You don't have to be fine. I mean, what Lisa did to you, it wasn't just unfair. It was cruel. I know because I've been there too." There was a vulnerability in her words that I hadn't expected. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I wasn't alone. We talked for hours, trading stories, unraveling the layers of manipulation Lisa had wrapped around both of us. By the time the call ended, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. The next few weeks were a blur of rebuilding. I threw myself into work, reconnected with old friends, and started finding pieces of myself I hadn't realized I'd lost. But the most unexpected change came from Emily. We started talking more often, not just about Lisa, but about life, books, music, travel, and everything in between. It was refreshing, a reminder that connection could exist without ulterior motives or hidden agendas. She had been through her own battles, but she carried herself with a strength that was quietly inspiring. One evening, Emily and I met for coffee. It wasn't a date, at least not officially. But as we sat across from each other, laughing over shared stories and bad jokes, I felt something shift. For so long, Lisa's betrayal had been the center of my world. But now, sitting there with Emily, I realized it didn't have to define me. The scars were still there, and they always would be. But scars weren't a sign of weakness. They were proof that I had survived. That night, as I drove home, I found myself smiling for the first time in what felt like forever. Lisa's lies had torn my life apart, but they hadn't destroyed me. And now, piece by piece, I was finally putting myself back together. Months passed, and the wounds Lisa had left behind began to heal. The house no longer felt like a graveyard of broken trust. It felt like mine. I repainted the walls, rearranged the furniture, and threw out the last remnants of her presence. Every change was a small act of reclaiming my life. The legal process was done, the divorce finalized, and Lisa was officially out of my world. She tried to stir up trouble during the proceedings, of course, but her lies had fallen apart under scrutiny. My lawyer had handled it brilliantly, leaving her with little leverage. Lisa moved on, or at least tried to. Mutual friends occasionally reported seeing her with Jason, but I didn't care anymore. They could have each other. Whatever happiness they thought they'd find would be built on the same shaky foundation of lies and deceit they both excelled at. And as for me, I was finally learning what it meant to live without someone else's chaos dictating my every move. Emily became a bigger part of my life than I'd expected. What started as sporadic phone calls turned into regular texts, then long dinners, then entire weekends spent together. She was careful, cautious, but there was an openness to her that I hadn't realized I'd been missing. She didn't try to fix me or pretend I wasn't still dealing with the scars Lisa had left. Instead, she simply existed in my space, bringing warmth and humor where there had once been nothing but cold silence. It wasn't a whirlwind romance. It wasn't dramatic or chaotic. It was steady, honest, and exactly what I needed. One evening, Emily and I sat on the back porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon. She sipped her wine, her hair catching the last rays of light, and I found myself marveling at how far I'd come. "You're quiet tonight," she said, glancing at me. "Just thinking," I replied. "About?" I hesitated, then smiled. "About how I never thought I'd get here. About how, for the longest time, I thought everything Lisa did to me would define the rest of my life. But it doesn't. It's just a chapter. And now I'm on a better one." Emily reached for my hand, her touch grounding me. "You are. And you deserve it." That night, after Emily left, I sat alone on the couch, the the soft hum of the TV in the background. My phone buzzed, and I glanced at the screen. It was an email from Lisa. I opened it, half expecting another round of manipulation or blame-shifting. But instead, it was short and almost pitiful. David, I don't know if you'll even read this, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. I messed up. I hurt you, and I'll have to live with that for the rest of my life. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope you're doing okay. Lisa. I stared at the message for a long time, waiting for the anger to bubble up, but it didn't. Instead, I felt nothing. Lisa's apology, whether genuine or not, didn't matter anymore. She didn't matter. Not in the way she once had. She was just a shadow of a life I'd left behind. A lesson learned the hard way. I didn't respond. I deleted the email and closed my laptop, letting out a long breath. The next morning, as the sun streamed through the windows of my freshly painted living room, I felt something I hadn't in a long time: peace. Lisa had taken so much from me, but in the end, she'd given me something too. A chance to rebuild, to find strength I didn't know I had, and to discover what I truly deserved. As I stepped outside to greet the day, I realized I wasn't just moving on. I was finally free.